Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today, From Data to Decision, AI that delivers actionable results. My name is Paul DeRate. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Critical Business Analysis, and I'm joined by David Taylor, the Chief Commercial Officer for LoadSpring Solutions. This webinar is being recorded, so we're going to go ahead and get started as people, join in. There's quite a few people on the webinar today, so, we're not going to pause or anything like that until the end. Today, I'll start by giving a brief overview of who CBA is and our partnership with LoadSpring. Then I'll pass it on to David, who will be giving our main presentation on how you can start to utilize AI to get results from your data. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions menu bar and on your screen, and we'll answer that at the end in the Q&A section. Today, I wanted to start by giving a brief, or for those of you who are not familiar with CBA, we were established, well, I think my screen went dark there. Sorry about that. Start it over. Sorry about that, guys. For those of you who don't know CBA, we were established in 1984, and we started out basically as a scheduling consulting company, doing Primavera implementations as one of the original Primavera authorized representatives. We've evolved over time, and with our pillars of service that you see listed below, we really strive to help owners, contractors, and project controls professionals reduce time, costs, and risks associated with their projects. We offer a variety of software solutions, a team of expert consultants, training through our CBA Academy, and we provide staffing help to our clients on their projects. We also offer hosting solutions for large and small clients through our great partnership with LoadSpring, as well as AI solutions for access to project data that you'll hear more about today. With that, I'm going to pass you on to David, and he will walk you through today's presentation.
Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be here today with everyone. Can you all see my screen? Looks like we can.
I think we can.
So,
yep.
Let me quickly walk us through what I'm going to cover today in this webinar, and then we'll jump into the actual content. So first, we're going to level set on why AI in project controls hasn't quite lived up to expectations so far. There's a lot of noise in the market, and I think it's important to separate the hype from reality. Next, we're going to look at the real problem that most organizations are facing, and it's not an AI problem, but a data problem, and how fragmented systems and manual processes are holding AI back currently. From there, we'll talk about what AI actually needs in order to deliver actionable results in a project or project controls environment. And this is, this is where many efforts kind of go off the rails. At least that's what we're seeing. Then we'll introduce the concept of a unified project platform, or UPP, what it is, why it matters, and how it addresses these challenges in what I believe is a very practical way. And then finally, we'll show a quick example of a UPP in action with a purpose-built project controls AI agent, so you can see how this works in the real world. And then we'll leave time at the end for questions and discussion. So with that, I'm going to jump in. Now, I know you're probably all sitting there thinking, what the heck is a cake doing on this slide? We're talking about AI. That said, I generally like to start my discussions with a relatable metaphor to kind of set the stage for the webinar today. So we might as well start with a delicious metaphor. So stick with me here for this for a moment. So let's say one of your colleagues is celebrating a 10-year anniversary party at work, and everybody on staff was asked to bring something in for the celebration. One of your colleagues was tasked with baking and bringing a cake to the party. Now, on the day of the party, you arrive in the conference room and you're sitting on the center table and you see a magnificent looking cake, right? It appears to be picture perfect, really, really tasty, right? Just like you would expect a rich chocolate cake to look like. And, you can't wait to dig in. Now, you don't think about it, but you anticipate that the cake is going to taste terrific because you assume that it's been made with all the proper and correct ingredients. Sifted flour, butter, whole milk, chocolate, eggs, and of course, sugar. And it's already making my mouth water, but then you sit down, you grab a slice of the cake and you bite into it. And it tastes absolutely nothing like you were expecting. In fact, it tastes horrible, absolutely inedible. Now, why is that? Well, maybe your work colleague has never made a cake before. And on top of that, maybe he did not have, I don't know, written instructions and had to go by photographs of the ingredients. I know that's probably a stretch, but bear with me for the sake of the metaphor. So maybe your colleague unknowingly substituted flour with baking powder and the chocolate with coffee grinds and the sugar with salt. He was well-intentioned, but he didn't know any better. So he baked the cake, he put frosting on it, and it certainly looked like it would taste good. But of course, the ingredients were wrong, so it didn't matter how good the cake looked. It still was not the cake you expected. It was wrong, right? And you noticed too late. You only noticed it when you actually took a bite out of the cake. Now, think of AI as the cake in this metaphor, and think of data as the ingredients. If the data is not accurate, if it's not clean, if it's not complete or even trustworthy, it doesn't really matter how good and accurate you think the output or the report or the AI results look, it's gonna be wrong. So thanks for indulging me. Hopefully I didn't make too many people hungry at this point because we still do have about a half an hour discussion in front of us. So thanks for sticking with me through the metaphor. So let's start with why we're even having this conversation. If you work in project controls, this isn't going to surprise you at all. AEC projects generate a massive amount of data: schedule, cost, progress, risk, estimating, forecast, right? We're all drowning in it. And yet, most critical project decisions are still made using lagging indicators. Last month's report, this week's update, data that's already outdated by the time it hits a steering or, let's say, a review committee. So when we read about all the research that shows that AI promised faster answers, better forecasts, maybe even predictive intelligence, but all the results have been mixed, that is not an AI failure. That's a data foundation problem. Now, before we get into why AI has struggled specifically in our industry, I think it's worth level setting on what AI is actually meant to look like in practice. So when done right, AI is not about flashy demos or, I don't know, abstract predictions. It starts with keeping data continuously aligned and current. So the insights reflect what's happening on the project now, not weeks ago, not even months ago. And instead of static reports, teams get dashboards that serve as trends, risks, and early warning signs. The type of signals that allow you to intervene before issues actually become visible in hindsight. Forecasting with AI becomes predictive and preemptive, looking across the entire project or entire portfolio. Again, schedule, cost, risk, estimating, all working together, not just deciphering one discipline alone in isolation. In the perfect environment, AI can also answer real project questions in natural language or natural query language, NQL. Questions like, what changed this week? Or where are we starting to drift on a specific project? Or what should I be paying attention to next? And critically, AI provides context. It doesn't just flag a problem. It's supposed to explain why it's happening, provide insights and recommendations, and it's all based on the underlying data. Now, that's the promise. Now let's talk about why, at least for most organizations, this still is not the reality. And let's start with a quick reality check. So AI is everywhere in the industry conversation right now. You've all seen it, you've all heard it. Everybody's experimenting, everybody's piloting something somewhere in the organization related to projects, but the results have not matched any of the hype. In fact, McKinsey's latest State of the AI research shows that while most companies are using AI in some form, Only a small minority are actually seeing measurable enterprise level value from it. Most efforts stall in pilots or they're isolated use cases and they never really make it to scale. And Gartner and PMI both point to the same root cause when they look at these initiatives and when they struggle: poor data quality. Not the algorithms, not the computing power, not the AI software that you purchase. It's that data is incomplete, it's inconsistent, and it's simply not trusted. And then, lastly, the construction and engineering field seem to feel this pain more than most industries. McKinsey was pretty clear in its research when it states that AEC continues to lag behind other industries in terms of digital maturity and AI return on investment. And that's largely because of all the fragmented systems and all the manual processes that still occur. Now, some may argue that this is actually a smart move. Let all the other industries figure this AI thing out first, and then we can move rapidly. We can capitalize on their successes, and we can also reduce the number of issues that cause failures because they would have taken the blow for us. And that might be true, but AI is moving so much faster than past technologies. I would argue that construction and engineering firms that wait too long, they'll miss the bus altogether, and they're going to have difficulty catching up, certainly to other more progressive industries when it comes to AI. So when I say AI results have been mixed in our industry, it's not because AI doesn't work, it's because the environment we're asking it to work in just isn't ready yet. So this is where things get real for project controls. The core problem isn't that we don't have data, it's that the data is disconnected and it is scattered across way too many systems that were never designed to work together. Schedules live in P6, MSP, ASTA, cost and estimating data sits somewhere else entirely. Risk is often tracked in spreadsheets. Each system does its own job reasonably well on its own, but none of them really tell us the full story altogether. So what happens? Power reporting, Power BI, AI, analytics, they all get glued together manually. Analysts are spending days, sometimes weeks and even months, pulling that data, attempting to clean it up, reconciling data dictionaries and definitions and data thesauruses, and trying to make everything all line up after the fact. So by the time leadership sees a report, the events have already happened. They're already in the past. And then decisions are reactive rather than proactive. And this is the environment that we're asking AI to operate in. So if the data isn't connected, if it's not current, if it's not consistent, AI doesn't create insight, it just accelerates all of that confusion. So why has AI been so hard to realize in project controls and projects, capital projects? And it really comes down to three things, I think. Number one, as we've discussed, data sprawl. Project data is everywhere, right? There are different systems, different formats, different owners, and AI cannot reason across chaos. Second, or at least AI today can't reason across chaos. Maybe in several years it might be able to. Second, inconsistent and in many cases non-existent data governance, right? There's no shared agreement on definitions, on ownership, on trust. If two teams can't agree on what progress means and what specific KPIs are important, AI certainly can't. And then third, human data entry and interaction errors. Manual updates, spreadsheets, rekeying of data, version confusion, right? Every single one of these handoffs introduces additional noise into the mix when it comes to AI and reporting. And here's the key point, right? AI doesn't clean this up for you. Of course, unless you actually have agents set up specifically designed to handle the translation, the unification, and the alignment of data, and maybe even possibly remediation of the data. There are firms doing that these days. If you're not doing that, AI is simply going to, it's going to amplify the reality, right? If reality is messy, AI is just going to show it faster. And it's going to show it with a lot of confidence. So You're going to get an answer from AI. It may seem correct simply because you used AI for analysis, and this is what AI told me, but most likely it isn't. As I like to say, we have the saying around here at LoadSpring, if I'm going to get results really, really, really fast with really, really, really high confidence levels, and it's going to be wrong, I'd rather get that information very slowly and with very low confidence, so at least I can check on it and I'm not faked into thinking it's accurate. So that's why so many AI efforts look impressive in demos and on the surface, but they fall apart in real project environments. Now, so how do we solve this? Because it has to be solved. We have to start moving forward with AI so that it can keep us on schedule and under budget, right? First, we need clean, trusted data. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be trusted. We need data that people agree on and are willing to make decisions on. Again, not perfect, just trusted, just accurate. Second, we need visibility across all project systems, right? Schedule, cost, risk, estimating, etc. They all need to be seen together in context with a single source of truth instead of competing versions of reality. Now, third, this cannot be a one-time cleanup effort. We need a way to automate the data transformation on a regular basis. Ideally, it should be daily, you know, at night when people aren't using the system or during downtimes when people aren't using the system. So that way your insights will keep pace with what's happening in the project on a day-to-day basis. And you can report and understand what's going on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, we need AI that actually understands project controls. We need an AI agent or an AI solution that knows what float means in a schedule. And it doesn't confuse it with something you order at an ice cream shop, right? It has to understand what projects are, project controls are, and it has to be able to give you answers about your projects, not only in context related to your organization, but maybe best practices across multiple organizations so you can measure up. And the key takeaway, I think, is this: AI doesn't need perfection, but it absolutely needs history, it needs consistency, and it needs context. So when you give it that, it can finally start delivering decisions instead of just dashboards, right? Plain old dashboards. So at this point, I think it's a reasonable question to ask. So if the solution, right, is so clear, it's data, why hasn't everybody in the industry already been doing it for months or maybe even years? And the short answer is because most organizations keep running into the same structural obstacles over and over again. First, independent software vendors and their clouds can't really solve this. Their platforms are built to optimize their application. Remember, they compete with each other. They're not incentivized in any way, shape, or form to create a true neutral system of record across competitive tools. I doubt that Hexagon would ever let Oracle get into its databases and vice versa. They're competing, right? It's not going to happen. They may have AI and reporting about their tools, but not across all the tools. Second, hyperscalers like GCP, Azure, AWS, they don't solve this either. They're great at infrastructure. Don't get me wrong. We're on GCP and Azure ourselves. Excellent for infrastructure, but they don't bring project controls experience and expertise into the equation. They provide space to run systems. They do not provide guidance on how schedule, cost, risk, and estimating should work together, right? And then third, and what we run into quite a bit at LoadSpring, is that internal IT teams are usually already stretched thin, right? Between security, between compliance and corporate initiatives, project application integration and AI for project controls often get pushed on the priority list. There just simply isn't enough specialized staff to do it right, or at least do it in a timely fashion. There's too much competition going on with internal IT. So the problem isn't a lack of desire. The problem isn't a lack of effort. It's that none of these approaches that most organizations use are designed to solve the problem end to end. Which leads to potentially the next question you're asking yourself. So what is? what actually solves this issue? And this is where the concept of a unified project platform, or UPP, comes in. And I'm going to explain it in some basic terms. And then in a little bit, I'll show you an example of how we apply a UPP to help solve this, so you can see it in real action. At its core, a UPP is a central project data layer. It sits above your existing systems, and it connects the data that already lives in tools like P6 and Deltek and Ecosys and HeavyBid and any other one of 200 some odd project applications that you may be using in your organizations. It is specifically built for project controls tech stack. Okay, it's not generic analytics, it's not a generic cloud structure, but the realities of how schedule, cost, risk, and estimating actually work together on real projects on a daily basis. That's an important note, because when you think about it, when you actually dig into the guts on all of these applications, you're going to find that they are 95 to 99% different, right? They have different file structures, different table structures, different naming conventions, different data dictionaries. They are all very, very different, but they do need to be pulled together into a single source of truth in order to work together. So I think it's also important to note at this point that the UPP isn't just simply another system that teams have to log on to and manage. It doesn't replace P6 or any other of your core application. It's the glue that kind of binds everything together and gives you a single trusted view of project truth, a 360-degree view of your project or your portfolios or your activities or your resources, okay? Once that foundation is in place, something interesting happens. AI finally has an environment where it can deliver insight instead of noise. So what exactly is a UPP? It's probably a new concept or a new word that many of you have heard. We love the concept, so we've been playing it up for over the past 12 to 14 months and just trying to get the word out about UPPs, right? The easiest way to think about a UPP is this. A unified project platform is the virtual nerve center for project controls. On the front end, it can act as a single pane of glass. It could be one place to access all of your project-related applications, whether they're commercial tools, in-house systems, on-prem, SaaS, it really doesn't matter. The key point is that the UPP is application agnostic. It doesn't care who the software vendor is. It doesn't care where the data lives. It pulls it all together in one place. Now, behind the scenes, it could also be a place where you access, administer, and maybe manage all of your project control applications and ecosystems, right? You can do user assignments and seat assignments and licensing assignments. You can do all of this under the UPP. You don't have to go out to the individual applications to do all your administrative work. It inventories your applications. It monitors them. It brings the data together so it can actually be analyzed and reported on in complex. And like any system, security here matters big time, right? It has to be built with enterprise and government level security in mind. So single sign-on, SOC 2, Type 2, proactive monitoring, all of the security that is required needs on each one of the individual apps has to be included in your UPP. And critically, and this is where all your data transformation happens, data is cleaned, it's aligned, it's translated, and it's unified so that your schedule, cost, risk, ERP systems, they finally all speak the same language. We had one example is we had one customer over in the UK that used 3 scheduling applications. They used P6, they used Microsoft Project, and they used a third one. It escapes me right now. Anyway, they used Asta. They used Asta Power Project, right? So they had 3 applications. 2 were on-prem, 1 was in the cloud, and they had to get 3 different reports, 3 different Power BI dashboards. Some were clean, some were not. It was just a nightmare to try and get projects and your portfolio reports across all of your projects. So what we did is we had to work with them to take all 3 of those applications, which were 90% different, only 10% of the data was similar and rework it so that they could have one place where all the projects lived and they could pull any KPIs or any reporting that they needed across any of those systems, regardless of where they came from and regardless of what teams were working in them. So that, in essence, kind of gives you an idea on how the data transformation has to occur in a UPP. Now, once that foundation's in place, right, you can then put powerful AI tools can sit on top of that. And it will allow AI to stop guessing and begin being able to reason answers and interrogation from a single source of truth. Now the next slide, I'm a little busy, so bear with me here a little bit. But before we jump into a quick demonstration, we are at 11:26. The demo will take about 15 minutes, which should leave us plenty of time for questions. Just want to spend a minute kind of orienting everybody to how this actually works end to end. So you'll see here on the left side of this diagram, you have your application users, your application managers and administrators, and they're working in schedule cost risk tools and other types of systems. Nothing changes there. The people continue to use the tools they already know. They just access those tools through a single secure dashboard with a single sign-on, right? Single sign-on gives you access. Let's say you work in 3 applications, you would have access to those 3 applications, and you would launch those applications and use them just like you would. You just come into one portal, okay? Those, so nothing really changes there. Those systems then feed into the unified project platform. You can see at the top, there's some SaaS applications, maybe your ERP application, and then maybe within the actual UPP, you're hosting your on-prem P6, maybe Esri, what have you. But what happens is the data is extracted from each of those sources and placed into purpose-built data ponds. Now, this keeps the original data intact, so it's traceable and it's audible. From there, the data moves through a transformation layer where it's cleaned and, most importantly, aligned and unified to all the other applications. So this is where they're finally brought into a common structure and time context, which is very, very important. That unified data then flows into a central data lake house, technically is what it's called, which becomes the single source of truth for reporting, analytics, and AI. So at this point, you can still plug in Power BI or Tableau or any other BI program that you use. You're just tapping into the proper, cleaned, trusted single source of truth, or you can overlay your AI solution on top of that. You can even have it so that the insight flows back into decision makers, right, without kind of manual intervention. You can actually rectify the data and put it back in if you so choose to do that. Now, the key takeaway is this: the UPP does not replace your systems. Say that again, UPP does not replace your applications, it does not replace your systems. It simply orchestrates them so the data flows once, it flows correctly, and it flows continuously. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this presentation, get into my browser, and give you an example of how LoadSpring attacked the challenge of a unified project platform. And I'll show you the hosting portion of it, the data transformation portion of it, and then probably the sexiest part of it, which of course is the reporting and the AI agent. So I might spend a little bit more time on that. But I want to be cautious here that I still leave us with about 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. So with that said, I'm going to end the show and I'm going to go over to my browser, and hopefully you can all see this. So I think I've seen several familiar names on the webinar. So some of you may be familiar with the LoadSpring Cloud Platform. The LoadSpring Cloud Platform is one of the legs of the stool of a UPP. It is the data hosting, data access, user access, and administrator access for applications. In this case, everybody in your organization who works on projects would log into this single pane of glass, this dashboard you're looking at right now, and you would be able to access any application for which you have a seat or you're a registered user. You would not be able to access any applications for which you are not a registered user, okay? Now, administrators would probably see every application. Specific users may only see P6 or P6 and EcoSys or something to that effect. And here's where you would just simply click and launch the program, and it would launch in the version that you're used to, and the interface would look exactly the same. So it's really a launch pad. It's also a place where you can do, besides getting reporting and support, you can also work on admin for and across all of your applications. So what you can do in one location is you can actually go into any of the applications that you're using. Let me see if I can find the P6 in here. Give you an example. So what you can do in this application is you can set it to a specific environment or a specific database. You can assign a specific application to, I don't know, a group of people in a specific business unit. And then from there, what you do is you can assign your users and then align them with the applications. So you actually do all of the work in a single pane of glass if you set a UPP up properly, so that you don't have to go out to all of the different applications and handle all of your administration. You don't necessarily have to go out to every single application to look at usage patterns across all of your applications. You can handle support directly through the UPP, so that you do not have to go through each individual app or have every user go through an app to ask for support. They can come back to a centralized area where you, as the administrator, can then determine whether you can handle it in-house or whether you need to pass it along to the ISV to handle. So that's very, very quickly the first leg of the stool, which is the access, management, hosting, and or connection into your application layer. The next leg of the stool is what I call the data transformation engine. And because now you have either connectors or the actual raw data within your UPP, and you know every single night you're drawing that down into a data pond, you can actually monitor, make sure that all of your transformations happening at the time you're requested without any errors, and you're getting the data that's trustworthy out of it. So in this particular example, you can see here we have Aries, we have P6, and we have an EcoSys application that runs every single day. It extracts, let's see how many. We're extracting 3 applications, 281 data tables, 5,000 columns, and over 15 million fields are extracted across a couple hundred projects every single day. Now, granted, this is a demo with synthetic data, but I'm just trying to illustrate that you could have 15, 5, 1 application in your data transformation layer, but the ideal condition is that you have all of that data updated into your data ponds every single day, once a day at a certain time, and it is automated. Once you set up your filters, whether you want to set up, I'll get to this very quickly here, whether you want to set up filters across P6, and you want to take any one of your filters, let's say you want to filter on the 14 DCMA quality checkpoints, you can do that, and hopefully your UPP allows you to actually create your own data quality filters through something as simple as Boolean logic, right? I don't want to include any projects that have start dates that are after the end date, for example. I don't want to include any projects in my analysis that have the word test in them or example in them, right? Because they're just test or they're example databases. You don't want that to get mixed up. And what it does at the end is it will be able to show you how many projects were processed, how many projects were ignored, how many projects were relevant based on your quality control criteria. And then you know that these relevant projects are actually available for trusted data, right? It's going to exclude some projects. It may include projects. It may give you warnings on which fields cannot or can be trusted for each project. So when you ask questions, you know you're going to get accurate, at least trustworthy data. Okay, so that's the second leg of the stool. We'll spend a little bit more time kind of on the fun part, which is once you get all the data scrubbed, cleansed in your data ponds, move down into your data lakehouse, single source of information, you can then move to your Power BI, your Tableau, or some sort of AI agent. And again, what I'm showing you here is our version of an AI agent. We call her Elsie. You'll have to forgive me for calling the AI agent a her or a she, but I want to play this one smart, so when AI actually takes over the world, they'll say, hey, that Dave he's one of the good ones. He was polite and called me a name, so proper name. So I will refer to Elsie as a her or a she. What we have found is that our customers still rely heavily on dashboards. People are not quite yet at the point where they want to rely on an AI agent where they ask questions and get text answers back 100%. There is a trust factor at this point in time. So what we do when we develop our AI agent, Elsie, we develop her as an AI agent that sits underneath and on top of the data. So she helps compile all of these KPI tiles you're looking at across the portfolio. So portfolio performance, portfolio overviews, safety overviews, cost risk, budget overviews, right? An executive view, S-curves, Monte Carlo simulations, you name it, right? Any KPI that you want, you can program your AI agent to go and find and return in a dashboard. So you don't have to ask questions and read it. It just gets refreshed every single morning. And again, you can do that across your entire portfolio. You also want to make sure that you have the ability to drill down into each individual project. And when you drill down into each individual project, it gives you even more information, again, derived from AI about the specific KPIs you want to look at every single day. Same thing goes with activities. There are a number of activities. You want to know specific questions about each specific activity, predecessors, resources, things of that nature, okay? You want to know if your resources are overloaded and they're going to get the activity done so that the project can stay on schedule. Now, the neat thing about creating dashboards and project intelligence with AI is that you can actually overlay an AI agent on top of it. Now, we happen to have a couple little buttons placed throughout our dashboards where we can actually ask Elsie a question. And it's just like you would imagine any other type of chatbot where we ask a question in natural language, and what Elsie has the ability to do, again, because this specific AI agent is built for project controls specifically, you're not going to be able to ask who won the football game this weekend. You're not going to be asked what does the weather look like in Portland this weekend. She's not going to know how to answer that. She only knows how to answer questions about projects and project management and project control. So you can ask simple questions like which projects are furthest behind schedule. The AI agent should be able to return results both in text as well as graphical representations in terms of visuals, charts, graphs. You should be able to have an AI agent so that when you read something about the answer that was returned, you can further interrogate it and continue to go deeper and deeper, as I like to say, down the rabbit hole and ask more questions that are spawned from answers from the previous question. You want to be able to dig down as far as you can go in a project and ask questions of it, okay? You're going to want to ask questions such as, well, wait a second, you're giving me a project health score of 100. How do you calculate your project health score and what does that data consist of? I need to understand what makes up that project health score. The AI agent should be able to understand how it calculates anything that you're seeing on the screen and provide an explanation of how it calculates it, how they're typically calculated, and how you can actually then use that information to improve your project outcomes, right? In this case, as you're seeing here, based on schedule metrics. Your AI agent should be able to give you tips, tricks, tools, recommendations, key insights on how to use the data that you're seeing to improve your projects. This is where AI is going, at least right now, in the project controls industry. It is like having a 24/7 AI agent at your beck and call that allows you to go beyond simple dashboards to be able to dig down super, super deep into every single project or portfolio that you have, right? You can even go down, I asked a question earlier today in here to find about who the, which resources were holding people up and who is the primary culprit of a resource holding up an activity, holding up a project, and why. And the AI agent came back and said, quite frankly, this particular person is way overloaded on assignments, only has so many hours in a week to get them done, and they just can't get them done based on the time that it's taken this person historically to get these tasks done. So you can actually see where all the resources are being plotted, and the percent complete on things as minutia as resources. So I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of how a UPP can use traditional dashboarding with AI underlying underneath it, as well as an AI agent that can sit on top of the data to give you information, detailed interrogation reporting on projects, on your activities, on your resources, and just as importantly, across your portfolio, and be able to give you tips, recommendations, and hints on how to use the data that they're seeing to actually improve the project. Now, where I have yet to see an AI agent, and we're working on this right now, is get into predictive and preemptive analytics, right? Where it says, wait a second, this has happened before in the past. This has historically delayed 50 projects by an average of 2 weeks. And of the projects that got back on track, here's how they fixed them. And I would recommend you do the same on this specific project. That requires a lot of data and a lot of historical data and a lot of customized programming and training of the AI agent. That is the next step in AI. That will be occurring over the next year, at least for us, and I know for other folks who are building AI agents out there, primarily across each individual software platform. That's where they intend to go. By the end of the year, actually get into predictive and preemptive project intelligence. But for the time being, you can see hindsight and you can see what's going on here, and AI allows you to, again, you or anybody who's not familiar with the project, to drill down as deep as they possibly can using natural query language. We are coming up on my time here. I want to leave time for questions and discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. I'm going to load it back up again, and we will head to the end here, Paul. So that is all I had today. I know I went through that fairly quickly, but I wanted to make sure that you got all of the information required and still leave about 15 minutes or so for questions. So I'll put a pin in it and stop right there.
Yep. So I have a few anonymous questions that came through, and also if you guys have any further questions, please be sure to go into the chat, or if you want to ask your question live, you can actually raise your hand on the side menu bar there where your name is, and I can unmute you individually, and you can ask your question there. But one of the things we wanted to, someone asked is this data being shared in the public domain, or is it just for my company?
Very, very good question. So it really all depends on your AI agent, right? So you can set your UPP up so that it is not shared. All of our clients, we have approximately 225 customers who are utilizing this for this purpose. They all have their separate environments. They are not shared between each other or the outside world. Their data transformation is theirs. It is in their environment. Most importantly, I mentioned that Elsie is project controls specific. So we train general Elsie and her AI capabilities and her training on project controls, right? Project controls expertise, what works in the market, what doesn't work in the market. When it comes to specific questions that our customers ask, we have made sure, because everybody wants this, that the questions and the data and the training on your data stays within your environment. It does not go outside to the greater internet. It does not go across any other platform. So let's say you call projects programs and programs schedules, right? You just have a different naming convention. We do have to train the AI agent for your nomenclature and your acronyms in the way that you actually ask questions. That is going to be different than another company, and that data is not shared. It should not be shared.
Okay. Another question is, how do you make sure that your AI data is reliable when you're, when you're pulling it out into the system?
Yeah, very, very good question. So that is about 2 to 4 weeks of manual intervention and testing. So if you noticed on the screen, first of all, whenever we set up the AI agents, we go through a pretty rugged and rigid 2-week setup process where we work with each customer to train the agent, again, in their specific language and understand how the data works together. We do not use, in the background, we do not use SQL databases to align all of these applications. It's too rigid, rows, tables, columns, right? You have to manually align everything. And even when you try and get AI to align it, it hiccups, right? So we've moved to a graph type database that builds data sources based on relationships, not table structures. So what we do is we go through a 2 to 4 week period of testing, asking questions that we know answers to, and we know that it's incorrect, somewhat correct, or spot on. And the AI agent, again, it's artificial intelligence, it starts learning what's right and what's not right. And one of the neat things I know with Elsie is, Elsie never assumes the first answer it's going to give you is correct. She actually continues to dig as far deep down into your data until she's exhausted any other possible answer, and then returns the one that is most logical, again, based on the training. But you do have to train your data set specifically for your data and what you're looking for. You can't just throw ChatGPT on top and ask it questions. Yeah. It will not work.
All right. Well, I think I have one more question, and then I think we'll end the webinar. But how does the AI score a project? Does it have a scoring mechanism or a specific built-in graph or something like that that gives you a project score or anything to that nature?
Yeah. So project scores. Again, you can build scoring if you already do scoring. You can build in scoring on any scale you want. You can do A, B, C, D, E, F. You can give it a numeric quality. You can give it a color quality, right? Green, red, yellow, the whole watermelon reporting. We do have defaults that appear to be common across all of our customers. So the default settings that you were looking at on the screen just a little bit ago, when it gave a project score of F, there are specific weightings, specific data that we pull into that formula in that calculation to get that F. If you, on the screen, you may have noticed there were little question marks next to every headline. When you roll over the question marks, it actually tells how every single calculation was derived, what source, any variables, multipliers, things of that nature. It describes how that's sourced. The other thing you need is a feedback mechanism on AI. So we've purposely built into every single one of those little tiles, those widgets, those KPI widgets, a little box that allows you to click on it and say, the information I received here does not appear to be correct. You can type in what you believe the correct answer is and what has gone on. You hit send, and it actually goes directly back to our development team so they can look at it immediately and see if they can get something that's closer to what you believe is the correct answer, again, by training the agent. So it shouldn't take weeks or months to go, wait a second, these reports aren't correct. Send them back to your analyst, and 2 weeks later you get a new report. AI can move much, much faster than people.
Gotcha. Great. Well, thank you, Dave. Appreciate the presentation today. And everyone, just remember that this has been recorded. So in about 3 hours, you should get an email with the recording of it. Well, actually, I do have someone else who has a question.
I just saw it as well.
Yeah, Matthew, I will unmute you. I think you need to.
So it says
Unmute
that the
yourself.
question was, we're running several legacy
there it is.
systems on old platforms or with vendors without APIs. What are your requirements for LoadSpring in this respect? Well, when we have legacy applications, internal, external, and they don't already have pre-built APIs, we have a whole team of people who have built APIs across hundreds of apps. So chances are that if they're legacy applications that once existed, we've been doing this for 25 years, we probably have an API that might already work with it, or we can simply change code for a similar type of application. But in that case, you would have to develop either new APIs, change old APIs, or you just might have to, unfortunately, in some cases, just download them, or we can automate the download. Maybe it goes to an Excel and then we automate download from Excel to come into the system every day. There are ways to automate it, and there are ways to build APIs, but you do need that connection. You do need to get that data in some way.
All right,
You're
perfect.
welcome.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. With that, I'm going to end the webinar, and everyone have a nice day.
Thank you for
David.
your time. Appreciate it.
Yep. No problem. Bye.